Right. Hello, ACDA East. My name is Will Gunn, and I'm one of the high school R&R chairs. And I'm also the performing choir chairs for your 2026 Providence Conference. So I'm super excited today to be joined by Matt Goldstein, who is the director of the Gaia Music Collective. And we are going to just geek out about everything choir, everything improvisation, and talk about a lot of the Instagram reels you've probably seen about the one-day choirs that Matt and his colleagues have been doing in New York City. So Matt Goldstein is an award-winning vocal arranger, facilitator, singer-songwriter, and educator who is dedicated to building community through collaborative musical creation. After earning acclaim for the emotive, innovative arrangements he crafted for the Vassar Devils and Hyannis Sounds, Matt has gone on to craft over 200 custom vocal arrangements for ensembles around the world. Most recently, Matt founded the Gaia Music Collective, a community arts organization and performance collective that emerged in New York City in 2021. Matt, thank you so much for joining me.
Yeah, it's such a treat to be here jamming out on this nerdy stuff.
Yeah, well, we're choir people. So,
Yeah.
I watched another interview with you recently, and someone asked you to give the 3 minute Gaia Music Collective story. So, and then you asked for the 5 minutes. So, I'm just going to ask you again for kind of the 5 minutes. How did this organization come to be? Where is it now, and where do you see it going in the future?
Yeah. I mean, this project was born kind of in 2021 out of the emergence of as the pandemic was shifting and vaccines were coming out and we were able to gather again. The first thing I wanted to do was to sing with people. That's always when I felt most connected, and I was feeling pretty lonely. And so I started hosting these improvisational jams in my living room with friends, and we would come together and share a little bit of what was real in our lives, because it was I was finding that I would be with friends, but we weren't always having the structures to really like understand what was actually going on in each other's lives. So we would come and we would do these check-in questions, and then we would just sing for 2 hours, play different singing games and circle singing, vocal improvisation. And it was such a electric and connective space to be in these living room sessions. And we started doing them kind of every Thursday. We were meeting 6 people, 10 people, 15 people. And eventually we put on a little house show in our apartment and put some videos of that online. And all these people were commenting on these videos, saying things like, how do I get in this room? Like, what is happening here? And I started to realize, like, oh, there's more people than just our friends that are hungry for this kind of connection. And so then we started to rent different studio spaces around New York and experiment with different offerings. And it grew kind of like wildfire. And now we have a team of 6 core facilitators, 6 administrative people. We're hosting over 20 events a month. And I've started doing pop-ups around the country and around the world, which is crazy to say. And our mission is to create connective and accessible music spaces where people for low cost and low commitment can be in collaborative, playful, spontaneous music, connecting with themselves, with each other, with the world through music. We have all sorts of different offerings. We have improvisational circle singing and open mic nights, songwriting circles, folk songs from around the world, and this one day choir series that has become this sort of viral sensation, and where we get people together for 3 hours to sing any given piece of music. We send them out part tapes and sheet music ahead of time so they can, learn in whatever way feels good to them. And then we spend 3 hours just getting to dive in and connect to each other through music. And it's been such a wild ride. And it's such a treat to collaborate with so many talented artists in creating these community spaces.
Yeah, and I guess as a choral director watching these viral videos on Instagram, I'm so curious at the process of these one day choirs. And I do want to get back to the circle singing improv later, because that's certainly a passion of mine pedagogically. But for the one day choirs, you send music and you send part tracks out ahead of time. What do those 3 hours look like? I assume that it's not just because there is no performance. It's just that 3 hours is the experience. So I'm
Yeah.
curious as to what the 3 hours looks like, and what a culmination for those participants is.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Um, we've actually come to a pretty um, a flow, kind of a structure for these events that is pretty replicable, I would say, with lots of room for bringing, so people don't flare to the process, but a lot of it was inspired by these different practices that I come from, hugely inspired by JD Frizzell and his approach to rehearsing a cappella and choir, and then also inspired by circle singing and the traditions from Bobby McFerrin and Rhiannon and Música do Círculo in Brazil. So these are all kind of woven into this flow where we begin by um, well, we like to say that, the facilitation of any event kind of starts in what people's first taste of it is. So that could be in the video that they see on Instagram, it could be in the email or the event description on the page. And already they were trying to describe some of the values of what we're doing here, that we're not valuing perfection, that we're here for the process, for the play, um, to kind of release some of these fears that people might have when they're people have been all sorts of traumatized by music making spaces in different ways. So from the beginning, we're trying to kind of lay the ground for people to hopefully feel comfortable showing up in whatever way they're able. We send out these part tapes. So, um, with the featured part in the left ear, all the other parts in the right ear, kind of quiet for people to get to be on the subway and practice their part. And then when we enter the space, we're starting off usually with some sort of playful way to wake up the music making muscles. So often it's call and response from a facilitator in the middle of the circle. And we're always rehearsing in a circle, rather than, me here, y'all there. Let's all be in a big circle together so we can see each other, really connect with each other. We're doing call and response, waking up the body, the voice, demonstrating as a facilitator playful ways to welcome in, not taking ourselves too seriously. So maybe we're demonstrating a voice crack and then everyone repeats back the voice crack, or we're singing something out of tune and just signaling it's okay, right?
Right.
Waking up the different by waking up singing in harmony, sometimes by just gesturally kind of inviting people to experiment with playing with harmony. And we'll just speak a little, lay down some of the ground rules, that the most important ground rule being that everything is consent based, everything is an invitation that people can choose to partake in, or if there's ever an exercise or game they want to sit out on, they can sit out. I found that that is one of the hugest permission slips to unlocking people's ability to actually show up and be present, because people feel like they have to do something. Even if they're willing to do it, there's a feeling of like being trapped sometimes. You're like, oh God, I'm gonna be put on the spot. So everything is it's optional, it's consent based. Um, and so then after play and check-in, we'll find our way to our voice parts, our sections. I collaborator Kenter, who's one of our one-day choir facilitators, came up with this fun way to kind of build a circle song with six, however many SATD we have, and then wander the room, trying to listen, find the other altos, find the other tenors. Once you all have these four layers, and so that's kind of a fun way to be on the prowl looking for your tribe. We end up in our
Yeah,
in our
yeah.
voice parts, and then we'll do some sort of check-in question. We'll invite people to turn to three or four neighbors or find a partner and um, share our names, share our pronouns, and then we'll have some sort of optional prompt for conversation. It could be something as simple as, "What's alive for you today?" Like what's real in your world, in your heart, in your stomach, in your body, or maybe what's something you're celebrating this week and something you're navigating this week. An invitation for people to just start to share a little bit of in whatever comfort they have, like whatever context they're bringing to this circle. Or maybe we'll ask, why are you here today? Like, why did you sign up for this choir? What are the different intentions people are bringing? And I found this is so key to people starting to feel a little less like they're in a room of complete strangers and starting to feel like, oh, we're on a team, we're together, we're coming from our complex lives with just a little bit more understanding as to all the beauty and all the stories that are in this room. Um, and then from there, before we step into the piece, we usually have one more moment where we'll do some sort of grounding singing exercise, maybe build out a chord progression, that's maybe something that's going to show up later in the song. Um, you know, ooh, oh, ah, something simple. And then a tool that I developed that I found really beautiful and nourishing is building this looping chord thing, kind of walking people through different vowels that we can sing to find our blend, and then coming back to a hum or an ooh and kind of inviting people to kind of popcorn out shares on some of these questions, what are things we're celebrating this week? And then people just shout out like, I got a new job. My sister's getting married. You get to hear like all these
Right. Yeah.
beautiful, what are some challenges alive in the circle this week? Like I have to find a new apartment. I'm getting evicted. Oh, fuck. Like you get to
Yeah.
hear at whatever comfort people have, people pouring so much of their selves into the music. From, and from there, we'll often invite people to close their eyes and let sing these home-based chord pattern, and then give people permission to go on little journeys away from home. Find a new melody here or a new note there, and then come back home to support and hold down the bass while other people explore. A really simple way to tip ourselves into improvisation, because I so deeply believe in the power of improvisation to unlock presence and authenticity and bravery. Um, and so, we'll be there with our eyes closed, and the chords are there spinning, but also people are starting to wiggle a little bit. It'll rise, it'll fall. We'll just for 2 minutes or so, then we'll come back together. And I usually find that after that, that also helps to massage out some of people's nervousness, some of people's wigglies. And then we'll do what we like to call like a messy run of the piece, a sloppy run where we just kind of pick up the song and we see where it's at. Maybe some people have gotten a chance to practice a lot, maybe others haven't, and um, we'll just say, we're here to just wake up the piece, not try to get it perfect, sing something strong and wrong, and remembering that if people near us sound like they know the part more confidently than us, they're not our competition. They're not a threat to us. They are our collaborators. Because people often feel embarrassed. Like, oh no,
Yeah.
these
Oh
altos
yeah.
really know what's up. So just reminding people like we're here to do something together. We'll do the sloppy run, then we'll run it again, but this time in um, like pods. We'll break out to have, 8 or so people in these pods. So we'll have maybe a tenor pod, a couple alto pods. We'll sing it again all together, but this time you're in a circle with, 7 other alto twos. So you can kind of isolate that sound. And then after that, we'll spend 10, 12 minutes in sort of mini sectionals. We'll say, all right, everybody, this is your chance to kind of talk amongst yourselves and figure out, ask questions, what's happening with this transition? Can someone help me find this note? And kind of let the collective intelligence of the room do the work rather than having assigned part leaders. We're like, there's so many smart musicians in any given room.
Yeah.
So we spend some time there. So forgive me, feel free to interrupt with questions at any
No,
point because I'm
this is
just
exactly what I was looking for.
rattling
This is
off
great.
this. Yeah, great. And as we have those part leaders, we're sometimes, when we break out into the pods, we'll say, um, could any folks who are feeling 75% confident on this song raise their hands and be a lighthouse for people to gather a pod around, so that it can be at least one person in each group that's feeling pretty confident. And then I'll say, and if you have any questions, you can raise your hand. I'll kind of dart around from pod to pod and answer any questions. Then we come back together. And before kind of working through the phrases bit by bit, we'll take a break, maybe sit down, and we'll talk about the lyrics. We'll read through the lyrics as a group, inviting folks to raise their hands and volunteer to read, and assigning, verse 1, verse 2, reading around the circle, for people to read nice and slow and nice and loud and give voice to the lyric. Because often I find that reading them can help people to hear them in a new way. Oftentimes people share like, oh my God, I didn't understand what the song was about until we read them.
Right.
And after we read them, we'll just open the air for people to share what they notice, lyrics that stand out to them or stories that it reminds them of, either as a full group or maybe in our little breakout pods, if that feels right. And this is always a beautiful moment to just get to hear people's connections to this music. I've been in so many choral settings throughout the years where we just never talk about what we're singing. We're like singing, a beautiful requiem, a funeral requiem, and at no point in the rehearsal process are we talking about what we're singing about. And then we're on stage performing it for an audience, and we barely understand what we're expressing. So we so key for us to have these moments of talking about the song. Sometimes we'll also do this after kind of running through and workshopping the piece, but I like to do it before so that can really inform some of the musical decisions we're making. Because in the next hour or so of this rehearsal jam is a more typical rehearsal process that might be familiar to many choir directors, working through massaging any trouble spots, helping to unlock confidence in different sections of the piece. And the focus here is really on empowering people to release their voices, not to necessarily find the perfect vowel or cut off, because like that's not going to stick. It's like an hour-long rehearsal.
Right.
So the focus is on just helping people feel comfortable and confident with the parts, unlocking expression, um, and we'll spend an hour, just like going through bit by bit, looping different sections, figuring it out, and then take a break somewhere in there for people to pee and make
Yeah.
friends. Um, and then we'll close with some final runs. Maybe we'll, um, open the air for people to shout out again, some like reminders of what the song is about to them. Like always trying to look for moments for people to share, deepen, connect. And then we'll do maybe a final run in our sections, maybe one mixed up so people can hear the song in a new way. And something that I love to offer here is like before we mix up, maybe people can check in with their neighbors and I see if anyone wants a part buddy to travel with. Because sometimes some people haven't sung an ensemble ever before. And they're like, oh God, if I lose my tenor buddy, I'm going
Yeah.
to be alone. So maybe they'll travel with a tenor fellow.
Yeah.
And then if we have time, depending on the song, we'll do, a run in sections, a run mixed, and then maybe some run where we're activating movement in the space in an even bigger way. So we'll have people scatter and kind of wander, walk around the room and hear the changing parts around them, or stand back to back with someone and feel the kind of resonance in their body. Depending on what the song is, and this was inspired by Acapella Academy, a summer camp that I work at. There's a day with the choir called Movement Day, where we spend the whole day just finding different formations to stand in or move in to see what they illuminate about a given piece. So, and then we're done. That's 3 hours. It's a tight
Wow.
shift. So that's sort
Yeah.
of the flow we've figured out so far, and it's also fun to see people experiment within that or create new ways. What's really important to us is the values, but there's so many ways to bring those to life.
Yeah, and I think especially as a high school director thinking about, recruitment, I always look for ways, from younger students to find ways to bring them into our community, similar to what you did, because I feel like, kids come for the music, but they often stay for the people. So, I think this could even be a really good recruitment strategy for a lot of high school teachers is to, find a retreat day, maybe it's a Saturday or maybe it's a day in the
Yeah.
summer and invite some of these eighth graders up, to join the high schoolers and bring them through some of these exercises. Um, what have you learned as a facilitator of this that either, is really, really important or, that you did early on that you didn't feel was as important, so you've tried to focus on. You touched a little bit on that, but specifically as you as a facilitator, how do you feel like you've grown over the last 3 or 4 years?
God, I could write a book about all of this. Um, yeah, I've learned so much from observing so many really talented facilitators and also just from getting to experiment, just getting to
Right.
lead in so many different types of spaces. Um, I think my practice as an uh, improviser has really informed my ability to lead in other settings because the just building confidence and trust in myself and my ability to kind of flow from moment to moment and stay grounded because so much of I think facilitating well is being able to read the room and adjust and tune into people's body language or voices and say, oh, do we need to spend more time on this or actually abandon a focus on this because it doesn't seem to be working with people. And I think the as long as the facilitator is, whoever's in the center of the room is going to be modeling, energetically for the room how we are showing up. And so as long as the facilitator maintains a sense of calm and um, of presence, you can tell when the facilitator is starting to get agitated or stressed about the music not sounding a certain way, that starts to seep into the ensemble. And so I'm always trying to be conscious of how to kind of model playfulness and presence and vulnerability with these circles. Um, yeah, yeah, and just finding ways to have fun with it and uh, like both take it seriously and take it not seriously at all. And I think that sense of play is something that is missing from many rehearsal spaces. Um, and I've also just found the music is better when, if you're rehearsing and spending so much time like, alto, the pitch is slightly under here, like, blah, 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 blah," and then everyone's getting in their heads and their hairs and their hair, like trying to think, rather than getting in our bodies. Okay, so I'm hearing it's out of tune. What if instead of pointing to the altos and saying you're out of tune and critiquing them, I find a way to call them in and say, altos, let's turn and face one another and sing and see if we can like let the eye contact actually bring us more into tune together, or find a way to like sink into our bodies more. Maybe that's actually going to bring it more tightly into the music. There's so many ways, like sneaky roundabout Jedi ways to get the music unlocked without people feeling, yeah, criticized. I mean, there's definitely a place for that in like rigorous music making, but with these kinds of accessible community offerings, I think the more freedom that we can unlock in the singers, the more joy we can make accessible, then the more fun people will have, the better the music will sound, more connected people will feel.
Well, and I think what you went back to earlier is a lot of people come in to these spaces or into high school choirs with trauma. They come in with some kind of experience.
Woo!
I even start out my school year by just having that discussion with my students. We haven't even sung a note yet, of just like, how many have had an embarrassing singing moment? Everybody raises their hands.
Mm,
And even sharing those experiences, and none of them are fresh. I mean, we can laugh about them now. Sharing those experiences lets everybody just take a deep breath and say, everybody's had this. Everybody shared this. This isn't a room where I have to compete with anybody. This is a room where I can feel valued. So I think that's so critical, and to name it.
yeah,
I think sometimes we have those experiences and then we put shame on them and then we try to forget about them or push them down.
yeah,
But I think naming them and living with them and laughing about them and even through the improvisation games, laughing and singing through the voice crack, I think is
yeah.
so important.
Yeah, we did a choir Wednesday night for Madonna's Like a Prayer. And after our first messy run, I asked, so raise your hand if you made a mistake at some point in that run.
Yeah.
95% of the hands go up. And then it's like, okay, and this is something I learned is when we were first doing these, I would say things like, there's no wrong notes, there's no such thing as mistakes here. And then now I come around to like, no, like there are mistakes. Like there's notes that are on the page, there's notes that's not, and it's okay to make mistakes. If
Right.
we're not making mistakes, how are we ever going to learn? Like no one starts a new craft or gets back into something after a long time and is doing it flawlessly off the bat. That's just not how humans learn or grow. And I think building a felt experience of like being safe to make mistakes, I think
Yeah.
is a really important thing.
Yeah, and that kind of brings me into the second place about, we mentioned the choral canon of treating choirs as director and singers, and I'm curious as to how you can, a lot of choir directors coming in don't have as that much improvisatory experience. Our training didn't
Mhm.
lend to that. So I'm curious as to your ideas. If you could have a room of high school directors in front of you, and you could help them come up with some of these even introductory, either circle singing or improvisatory ideas. What are some really kind of easy ways that we can integrate those into our classes to help not only build that community but also build that idea of creation? Because one of our music standards, from the National Association is create. And I feel like in a lot of choral classrooms, it's just like, here's a new piece of music, let's learn it, let's perform it, and then let's learn a new piece of music. So what are some ways from your perspective that we can easily start to build those in, and then obviously kind of build upon that?
Mm. Mm. Another thing I could write a book about. Um, there, yeah, I think improvisation is such an amazing tool, and it's not it. It can sound scary to some people. It's this feeling of like being put on the spot, being just like left off the deep end. But I think all of our bodies have so much music living in them more than our maybe heads fear that they do. So yeah, some simple ways to find our way in. I love call and response. It's so simple, la 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 la. Wee "Wee." I feel like most of us can come up with short, little, silly phrases as just a way of building conversation with an ensemble, and then maybe even opening the floor for people to step in one at a time. Just like a choir member jumps in the circle and goes, nee, 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 nee. We all go, nee, nee, nee,
Yeah.
just like a playful way of all of us just opening the doors for different sounds we can make together. Um, and there's all sorts of, really smooth ways to get into that are kind of hard to describe on a Zoom call and easier to just sing and do. An exercise that I love is um, called See You on the Other Side, and it's adapted from a teacher of mine in Rhiannon who teaches vocal improvisation. She has a, a book and a deck of exercise cards called Vocal River. It's an improvisation curriculum that I really recommend and was such a beautiful resource to me, these cards and these games. And See You on the Other Side is a game where people are invited to close their eyes or kind of lower their gaze, and the ensemble begins with someone offering one note. We all meet on that kind of unison note, and then the door opens for people to kind of let out one long note at a time, one long note per breath, one long note per breath, committing to one note for each breath, right? Rather than bringing in melody and rhythm, to just keep it simple and see if we can have a musical conversation as an ensemble, to just kind of tune into our bodies, tune into the ensemble and each other, and welcoming in with this exercise that there truly are, that all notes are welcome. There's no wrong notes here. So it can be discordant, it can be harmonious. We can live into some of the crunch and dissonance and see what that feels like, and just trust, commit to this one long note at a time, letting the vowels, whatever, adapt, and then somehow finding an ending altogether, coming back to one note, or letting it fade intuitively, and trying to invite the ensemble to trust into letting the song go and finding an ending together. Could be 5 minutes, 10 minutes, 15 minutes, who knows? And then we'll close our eyes and we'll do the thing after kind of explaining the roadmap. And I've done this with middle schoolers. I've done this with the HR team at Google. I've done this in so many different settings.
Yeah.
And no matter where it is, it ends and people, and then I love to open the floor and be like, what do people notice? What do people experience in there? And people are sharing all sorts of beautiful things about the shared intuition, or just like the connectedness they feel, and their experience with their own, fear of bringing in a wrong note, and then trusting and realizing that like it's going to be okay. And I think it's a great kind of basic improvisation. One note. All I have to do is pick one note at a time.
Cool. Love
I mean, yeah,
that.
there's so many games. The Vocal River handbook is full of all sorts of tools and tricks, and hoping also that in the next coming years that Gaia will be able to offer some sort of like facilitation training program to share some of these tools in a more hands-on, experienced way for anyone who's looking to bring some of uh, these magical little music tools to whatever context they're working in.
Yeah. And then going off of that, I guess, thinking it back to your own, obviously your experience is shaped by so much a cappella music, and going back to your own
Mm.
choral experience, what do you hope that choral directors what skills do you hope that they can incorporate more in their programs that people can walk away with and feel more comfortable in some of these improvisatory exercises? For example,
Mm.
like I was always envious of my friends when they could like harmonize to a song on the radio. And I always thought that that was just something you're born with, like either you can or you can't. And then
Mm.
realizing that it really is, it's just a skill, it's just like anything else.
Yeah.
Just develop it.
I mean, so many of these skills, like harmonizing, finding, working into our intuitive sense of rhythm or of movement, of lyric. That's one that for many people feels so distant, but it's actually, when approached from a sense of like playfulness, can be so expressive and fun. Um, I think that this stuff is way closer. I was always so scared of improvising. I was like, oh God, don't put me on the spot.
Mhm.
And then I thought it was going to be this big, scary journey to like unlock that. And it actually was, it didn't feel like getting tipped off into the deep end. It felt like just walking through warm shallows and then eventually finding yourself swimming in deep waters that uh, almost like I didn't even realize how deep I was getting. So I would just, yeah, I hope um, that leaders in the music world are um, open to, yeah, just like open to um, what I think it just takes a little bit of vulnerability. It takes a willingness to be seen making a mistake or seen growing or uncomfortable or at our edges, and to trust that there's something that our singers can learn from seeing their leaders at their growth edges, making mistakes and then naming that they made a mistake, that we don't learn as much from seeing people always on top of their shit. That like it actually is really can be really beautiful to be with someone and see that they're challenging themselves too. And then maybe, oh, but maybe I can feel more comfortable as a member of this community pushing myself.
Yeah. And what do you hope, looking toward, I mean, I'm sure Gaia Music Collective has just grown exponentially since you started it 4 years ago. What are you looking for in the future? What do you hope this organization becomes? I know it's kind of a big question, but
Yeah. Right now, we're kind of experimenting with what having more global connection looks like, what it's like to do these touring pop-up events, what it might look like to plant the seeds for branches of Gaia to kind of live in different cities, and to train facilitators to either go start their own projects or unrelated things, or to also kind of carry Gaia to wherever they are, hoping to build some sort of summer music festival, summer camp energy in the woods somewhere, a week where people can come from around the world and share in participatory music experiences together. We're planning a 24-hour Sing for the Earth circle singing fundraiser for the summer solstice this year. That's going to be really fun.
wow.
And like I said before, this uh, facilitator training program that can hopefully be accessible to people, schools, prisons. There's so many companies. There's like so many places that we can take this. So we have to just kind of take a step back and be like one thing at a time. But
Yeah. Yeah.
just more music, more connection, please, everywhere.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much. And if you're near New York City, definitely check out either TikTok or Instagram and go to one of their events. It's going to be great. So
Yeah, all are welcome anytime.
thank you, ACDA East. I hope you guys have a great spring.